Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being back on here on the Speak Honest podcast. I'm so excited today because I have a special guest and I have a breakup recovery coach with us today, Lucy Price. Lucy, say hi, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, it's so good to be here. My name is Lucy Price. I am exactly what you said, a breakup and recovery coach. I've helped over 100 people in the last 3 years to get over their exes, heal from heartbreak, and move forward. And I love chatting about all things relationships. So I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, that is so fantastic. And I love to hear it. So you got started about 3 years ago. Is that right?
I got started about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And then before that, I was a health coach. So I've been coaching for a total of, I would say about 7-8 years at this point, which is just wild to say out loud.
You like start counting and
I'm
you're like, wait a second.
counting, like, how long have I been doing this for? Yeah. So I was a health coach for about 2-3 years. And then when the pandemic happened, everything shut down. So all of my work was in person, in gyms and businesses. And so after that, I transitioned online and I noticed that a lot more people were coming to me for general life coaching, which then turned into relationship coaching. And just based off of my own history around relationships and around my own heartbreak, it became a very natural fit to transition into relationship coaching. So I've been doing that since about 2020. And in the last 3 years, very focused around breakups in particular.
I love that pivot for you as a coach. And I know I have a lot of coaches that listen as well to the podcast. So I really love how you were able to kind of take what you already noticed was a problem out there. You know, people were looking for it and you're able to shift and pivot. And I heard you say it also had to do with a little bit of your own experience. And I'd love to get into that. And I'll share a little bit about my experience. But definitely anyone that knows my story knows this all started back in also 2020 when the world is shutting down. But also for some odd reason, my boyfriend at the time decided to break up with me in the exact same moment. So I'm heartbroken. I'm devastated and I'm, sitting in my bed with no pants on, drinking as much as I possibly can. And I'm constantly Googling how to win my ex back. And so how common do you find this in your work for women? Is that how women find you?
I think it's so common to want to try and win your ex back. I think that is one of the top things that so many of my clients experience. And some of my clients will even come to me and they'll ask me, I know you work with helping people get over their ex, but I want to keep the door open for me and my ex getting back together. And I always tell people, like, that is possible. You can do the work to heal from the heartbreak. You can process the breakup. You can move forward and you can still leave that door open. But over time, you may realize that you actually don't want to leave the door open anymore in the process. And I think that can be scary for people sometimes to realize, like, oh, if I really do move forward, I'm really saying goodbye to this person. But it's so common. Like, people will be a few months into the work we do together and they'll realize, like, oh, that person really wasn't the one. Or I was, wanting to try and win them back because I was afraid of what this new reality meant. And I was mourning the loss of the future I thought I was going to have with them. And I was mourning the loss of who I thought they were and the fantasy version I had with them. So it's so common to be sitting in bed, trying to numb out, trying to figure out how to win your ex back. And I would say that's way more common than we give any credit for. Most of my clients have some version of that.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, just for normalizing it, for helping other women see that this is a perfectly normal place to get to.
Yes.
And I'll often say, like, yes, I went into this work trying to win my ex back and instead I won myself back, right? Like, I figured, so if that's like if that's what happens, that's what happens. But you know what I love most about your work, Lucy, and I highly recommend anyone go and check out your stuff. We'll drop all the information in the show notes and you'll tell us more later. But what I got sucked into, and I just want to be very open and honest about the coaching spaces out there right now, is I got sucked into coaches who told me I can get you your ex back. And what I love about your work so much and why I really wanted you on this podcast was your honesty, the way that you're real about it. And you're like, no, let me help you get over him. And like you said, it's absolutely everybody's choice when that happens, but you're not giving them false hope that you can win their ex back. You literally can. Can you speak on that a little bit?
I have a million different thoughts that I can speak to about this.
Great.
I think I'm going to give a frank opinion. I think that anyone guaranteeing that they can get you your ex back, I need you to see the red flags around that, because there's so much that goes into a relationship and there's so much that goes into rebuilding and getting back together with your ex. I do think it is possible to get back together with your ex. But I also think that healing and processing the breakup is necessary in a way for that to happen, because otherwise you're entering back into the relationship with the same mindset, the same patterns, the same dynamics that led to the erosion of the relationship and eventually the breaking of the relationship in the first place. And I think that when there are coaches out there speaking on, I can get you your ex back, you know, you need to just improve your appearance and play hard to get and play these games.
Just
Like,
be softer.
just be
Just say these words.
softer.
Text less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Text less, text more, text this, do that, wear this. Like, it's great marketing, but that's what it is. It's marketing. And I think that there's just a lot more nuance that goes into relationships, and it's a big disservice to you to get sucked into that, because you deserve to heal. And if you want to get back together with your ex, if that's something that's on the cards, it just takes more than sending the right text or giving the right energy for that to happen. So I think that it's, I don't know, I always go back to, it's great marketing, but I do think it's just marketing. And there are things that you can do to rebuild a relationship and to begin those conversations. And also, I find with a lot of the material out there that's talking about, like, I can get you your ex back, it's not actually tools and resources that are helping you heal and look at your patterns and look at what you're being attracted to. It's saying the right quote unquote thing, or dressing the right way, or like you said, being softer, being more this
Put
or that.
pink on, wear a
Yeah,
dress. Yeah.
exactly.
Just to like keep it very transparent between us, like in that beginning, when I was at my lowest and I was most susceptible to all of these things, I mean, I dropped a couple grand on these kind of like feminine coaches teaching me how to win him back, what to do. All these things you're saying are like hitting me right in the dagger in the heart as well, in terms of talking about like, oh yeah, say this, don't say this, wear this, don't wear this. And I just want to really showcase to people that there's a way to break up, to recover from that breakup. And still, yes, if you want to get back together with him, of course. But breakup recovery does not indicate, break up forever or cut him out of your life. Like, you can even still stay. Oh, I'm such a big proponent for staying friends with your ex. Like, I'm just like very radical in this world. But it's like, I don't know, maybe because I like all of my exes, they're still my friends. So maybe I'm projecting. But people come to me and they're like, conventional wisdom says if you break up with someone, you can't talk to them ever again. You have to go no contact, all of this. So I'd love to hear your opinion. What are your thought processes on staying friends with an ex? Is it possible even?
I do think it's possible. And I think that we get really touchy about this in society. We get really guarded. We get really just fidgety about it. And it's interesting to me. So I have a few different thoughts around it. The first thought I have around it is it's not possible for everybody to never talk to their ex again. And I think that's where I love working with my clients who are co-parents, because they have to see their ex. The court has ordered that they must pass off their kids on this date, at this time, at this place. And so sometimes never seeing your ex again or never talking to your ex again, it's just not actually easy. It's sure someone could argue like, well, you always have a choice. And it's like, yeah, you do always have a choice. And also, if you want to, do right by your child and make sure that's clean energy in terms of passing them back and forth, like, there's a certain amount of engagement with your ex that is needed there. And so I think that kind of takes me in the direction too of people who say, just go no contact. That's the only way you can get over your ex, is by going no contact. It's like, that's not true. There's plenty of people who have been in touch with their ex and engaged with their ex who have been able to also move on from their ex while maintaining some level of contact. And it's just not possible for everybody to go completely no contact. So what do you do then? Do they just not get to heal and get over their ex? No, of course there's a way. So I think that, in general, we get really touchy about it, about being friends with an ex. But I will say, like, me personally, there are some exes that I never want to talk to again. And there are also some exes that, I hung out with my boyfriend of 5 years and my ex and his new partner yesterday.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's like, him and my ex have been friends for like 15 years. That's how I met my now partner, was through my ex. And so it's like, there are some of these dynamics where I think as humans, it's very easy for our brains to try and fit things into black or white, right and wrong. And the world, in my opinion, is way more nuanced than that. And we live in a gray area all the time. If you had a good relationship with your ex and you can truly detach and can take out, whatever elements you feel need to be taken out, such as romance or attraction or whatever it is, I do think you can still be friends with your ex. I don't think everybody's going to like it necessarily, but all that matters is that you feel good about your relationships to them.
Thank you so much for sharing that personal story about
Yeah,
hanging
yeah.
out with your ex and then with your partner. Because you brought up something that I kind of heard you saying throughout this as well. I loved how you said bringing a clean energy into that relationship. I co-parent with my ex-husband. And yeah, like being able to have that kind of friendship now between us
Yes.
as is what's best for our son. So that clean energy. But what I also thought about when it comes to exes and all this stuff is so much of our life is intertwined. And so look at you, you met your now boyfriend through this situation.
Yeah.
Imagine if you just listened to the rhetoric of get rid of this guy, never talk to him again, and don't be with any friends. We have literally lost community
Yes.
because, I mean, for me, my ex-boyfriend, he's like a part of my biggest friend group. What am I just
Oh,
supposed to lose
yes.
my entire, especially over the pandemic, am I supposed to just lose my entire friend group because of him? And he's not going to leave. That's not fair to ask. So by being able to recover from your breakup. And that's what I love most about like breakup recovery coaching, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, it's not saying like tear it apart or anything.
Mhm.
Recovering means healing from it, right? Means being able to be with that clean energy towards that person. And then you make the choice from an aligned space inside of you, from an empowering space, not from a hiding or a fearful space. And is that what you see a lot with your clients when you're able to help them recover from their breakups? Are they coming out more empowered?
I think 100% they're coming out more empowered. One of the things that I say is that I think our breakups can be our biggest breakthroughs. They can be the moments where we reestablish who we are and who we want to be. We can lock in to our values and our desires and how we want to live and move through the world. And I think that in that process, what happens is a regaining of personal power because sometimes we're outsourcing our power so much without realizing it. We think we feel confident because we're in a relationship with this guy who has a good job and is attractive and charming and blah, blah, blah. And we feel like we have that sort of social status. And then you go through the breakup and you don't have that anymore. So you get to regain it for yourself and you get to reestablish yourself and go, how can I feel more confident just in who I am and not who I'm dating? For example, there's other ways we can regain our power in terms of just even learning the mindset tools, the emotional regulation tools of feeling like we have agency over ourselves. Because one of the things I notice a lot in breakups is it's really easy to fall into the pattern of being reactive and being activated by just seeing a photo online or having a thought of like, why me? Why this? Why did they leave me? And being sucked into that mental spiral. And so getting the tools to be able to manage the mind drama and be able to process the heavy emotions, the anxiety, so that you can move intentionally through the world and feel like you're deciding your future rather than being just brought along through the waves of emotion. I think that's such powerful work. And so that's a lot of what I do with my clients is we look at, okay, where have you been knocked off kilter in your life through this breakup? Where have you been living for other people? Where have you been adjusting yourself or making yourself small to please other people? And how can we get you back? Because this is your life and how do you want to spend your life? So I think it's inherently just through the nature of it, a very empowering process.
I love that. How can we get you back?
Yeah.
Because essentially that's what we're doing at the end, right? Now, again, how I said, like, not how do I win my ex back, but like
Right.
literally, ladies, like, listen to this. Like, how do we get ourselves back? And I love what you said. I think you said breakups can be our biggest breakthroughs.
Yes.
Oh, I would love for you to speak more on that because I think it gives so many women that are going through breakups. I can think of a couple clients right now. They've made that really hard choice, of themselves having to leave. They had to leave the toxic situation. They had to stop their patterns. And so I wanted to know if you could speak to the women who made the choice themselves to break up and they're feeling that pain. And what I hear a lot is, why am I so sad? Like, I chose this. Did I make the
Yes.
wrong choice? What's going on? So, but they can be our biggest breakthrough. So could you speak a little bit on that?
Absolutely. I'm going to use myself as an example for this one. So, in my one of the hardest breakups that I've ever been through, the breakup I refer to the most in my content. There's a couple I refer to, but this is the big one I refer to. I ended up ending that relationship, and this was after 2 years of trying to make that relationship work and feeling like I did everything I could think of to do to make it work. I had changed myself. I leaned into his interests and away from my interests. I tried to be the person that he wanted me to be, or frankly, that I thought he wanted me to be. And I lost so much of myself in that process. And I'm not talking about like light loss. I was feeling anxious every single day. I wasn't sleeping. My appetite was leaving. I was breaking out. I wasn't like my weight was fluctuating all over the place. These were having not just a mental emotional effect, but effect on my health as well. And so 2 years into this, I finally just had this realization, because I found out that he had been cheating, that he just didn't want to be with me. Like he didn't really want to be with me. And it was gut wrenching. It was awful. And it hit me harder than any ending of a relationship had hit me before, because I really tried on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a lot of fear of intimacy, a lot of relationship anxiety, that prevented me from dating from the time I was 16. So the fact that I met someone who I wanted to try and wasn't letting my commitment issues get in the way, and I was pushing past the anxiety to invest 2 years trying to make it work, and just realizing that it wasn't going to work, was one of the hardest things for me. And I think that comes down to that decision, right? Like making that decision, why does it still hurt? And I realized part of when you get to the root of the word decide, it means to cut off. Like some of the Latin roots is to cut off. And I realized I was cutting off a future line that I saw for myself. I was cutting off him. I was cutting off the version of me that wanted to receive his love and his care and his affection. So there was a lot of cutting. And I had to grieve that. I think it's easy to think of grief as just you're only allowed to feel it in certain situations, but grief is so common, and it is incredibly common in a breakup, regardless of who initiated it, because you are mourning the loss of what you thought could be. You're mourning the loss of who you were, of what the relationship was, of even just having someone to talk to every day. Like there's a lot that is being grieved there. So for me, it was a hard decision, and I got to the point where I literally thought to myself, I'm losing myself. And if I keep going, I'm going to lose myself completely. Like I'm just not going to be myself. And I chose me at the end of the day. Like this wasn't even a decision of like ending the relationship with him. I mean, it was, but it was more of a conscious decision of I need to choose me. And in order to choose me, this needs to end, because I can't take this anymore.
And that's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story, because I think it really will help other people to see that these are real life situations that we're going through. And this stuff can be really big. And I love what you talked about with the grief, because I think that part is so important. Grief is not just death. Grief is not just losing a loved one in that way. In fact, I think there is this really great quote by, is it David Kessler, that says like, grief is just having something turn out a way you didn't expect it to. And which which like, and I'm sure he says it like way better, right? And but like it's almost seems like dismissive in some way, but at the same time it's like, yeah, anything that just didn't turn out the way you thought. Or what's that other quote? Grief is just all the love that we have with nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
So when you have like this ex or this partner and you have all this love for them, and you're like, well, where am I going to put this? Who am I going to talk to? All of these aspects is you need to grieve that. And that's okay. You can choose yourself and still be sad that you are missing someone, and be sad for that. And what I like to do with my ladies is when we get to that place is really working out, okay, what was it that you liked about this relationship? What is it that you're missing? And I often say to them, like, you're not actually missing him. You're missing who you were around him. So you're missing the playfulness, the fun,
Yeah.
maybe the sex, maybe the cuddles, maybe the TV shows. Maybe he helped you like try out new TV shows because he had an Apple podcast subscription or Apple TV subscription. And you're like, but
You're
I
missing
loved
his
Ted
subscription
Lasso.
access.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're like, but I need to finish Severance. What's going to happen? So like in those ways, and this is, I actually say this in a joking way, but I did have a client at one point in time. We're talking. She's like, you know, it's just sometimes I really miss Apple TV. And I'm like, girl,
You can get Apple
go
TV.
buy Apple TV. And like, and I know I'm making jokes, but at the same time, right? She was like, oh yeah, wait, holy shit, I can do this for myself. And then she went and got it and found all these other great shows about it. But it's tiny little things like that where we learn like grieve, process, go through all of that definitely. And then also see that part of what you're looking for is still there. We just have to go and find it in different ways now.
Yeah.
And so thank you again so much for sharing that. But I would love for you to speak a little bit more on that grief. Do you find that to be a common problem with the women kind of coming into your world and into your programs about kind of this big grief that they're feeling?
I think absolutely. And I think sometimes it comes through in the ways that we don't even consciously see at the beginning. So we started our chat with Googling how to win your ex back. One could argue that's bargaining in the grief cycle.
Oof. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes.
And so I think that this happens in very sneaky ways. You know, you get into the anger processing of grief of, you know, that I don't know if I can swear on this podcast.
Please, yeah, no, that fucking asshole did all. Yes, that like, yes.
I like sitting.
You're right. That's anger. Oh my god, can we keep doing this, Lucy?
Yeah,
can you like walk me through the stages of grief in a breakup? This is amazing, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so I might miss one, but like sadness, you know, like the depth and despair of thinking that they were the one and getting really fixated on it. Then you have like the fighting against it, you know, trying to win him back, driving by his house at, you know, 5 p.m., texting him relentlessly. Like there's so many ways that this comes out, and it's just the grief stages that you're working through.
And even like denial, I'm just thinking now in terms of like having
he's gonna come back in 2 weeks, he's gonna message me. I'm just, you know, checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if he has texted you, going on to your stories to see if he's seen your Instagram stories.
Yeah, why has he blocked me on texting, but he keeps watching all of my stories? It must mean he still loves me. There's something still there. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh wow.
And I think that we go through grief and like all the stages of it, and we might not clock it and go like, oh, I'm in denial right now. I mean, it also doesn't feel good to be like, I'm in denial right now, right?
Yeah, nobody wants to say that about themselves.
Exactly. But when you take like a loving step back, you can see, oh yeah, that's where I was in denial, and that's where I was bargaining, and that's where I was angry, and this is where I was sad, and here's where I found a bit of acceptance, you know, and then I got angry again, you know. So we go through these cycles, and allowing yourself to go through the process of grief, truly the cycles of grief, I think is important. That where people get tripped up is they end up staying in one. Like they'll kind of stay in the bargaining, or they'll stay in the anger, and they'll kind of re-trigger a looping effect where they're not actually processing at that point. They're more ruminating on it. And so I think you have to allow yourself to feel the feelings that come up. But it's when you start gripping onto a story, like what are you making this part of anger mean? Like, what are you making him checking your stories mean? What are you making him texting you at 2 a.m. to see how you've been mean? Like getting really curious about what you're making like different things mean and how you're feeling about it and what you're gripping onto, because that can kind of stagnate the processing of the grief in the morning of the loss.
I love that you're asking the question, like, what do you make it mean? Because another question that I'll often ask people is, what are you hoping it means?
Yes.
Oh, because they'll like ask questions, but like, oh, he texted me on my birthday, you know, but we've been in no contact for, you know, 27 days. We were supposed to go 30, whatever. What do you think this means? And like the very first question back is always, what do you hope it means? Yeah. Like, what are you actually hoping is going to happen? But then that's okay, because it teaches you what you want. And if that's like, well, I hope it means he still loves me and he misses me. Okay, great. Well, then let's get really honest and vulnerable about that, because that's where we start making the shifts and the changes, right?
Absolutely. You just reminded me when you were saying, what are you hoping it means? Because that's one of the questions I ask people when they're stalking the Instagram, you know, stalking the social media, trying to work things out. It's like, Well, if you see a photo of them, what do you think that will mean? Like if you see a photo of him with someone new, what are you hoping it means? What are you hoping to find? What are you hoping to not find? Like asking those questions can hold just enough of a mirror to get curious and go, oh, hold on, why am I actually doing this? And in some cases go, can I meet that need another way? Like if I'm looking for reassurance that he's not seeing anybody, okay, so there's a need there for reassurance. How can we find reassurance in a different way, for example?
Oh, I love that so much. I could have totally used you back in the day. Okay, I'm going to be very, very vulnerable about this. I actually don't know if I've shared this with very many people. Back in the early stages of my breakup, I used to have a spreadsheet. Okay, Lucy, I'm not kidding you. Okay.
Yeah.
When my ex would check my stories,
Yeah.
like to this day, actually, almost when I ever see like his like little profile picture pop up on my like Facebook, because it's the exact same one, I'll still have like a similar somatic feeling because I, for so long, would spend hours looking at my stories, waiting to see when he would watch them, and then like keeping a spreadsheet tracking, like, oh, he didn't check it at 1 p.m., he checked it at 3 p.m. Oh, he's checked it at 3 p.m. 3 days in a row. So now it's almost like
Yeah.
almost the way I market now to like clients and leads today, which is like, oh, when are they most active on my Instagram? Except it was for one man, one breakup, and I was this over focused on how to get him back and like what could I actually be doing in order to get that. And so the way that you explained that and how you're like, just ask yourself, what do you make it mean? Like, what do you hope it means? If I just had a safe space, somebody to kind of call me out in those moments, a coach that was honest with me, not telling me, oh, yes, if we just figure out when he's checking your stories, then we'll know when to text him next. Like, this is what she was teaching me.
Yeah.
And it messed me up. And what I want to like really be honest about is we need these kind of honest moments, right? These kind of empowering moments to say, no, sweetheart, what do you actually want it to mean? And if I got really honest, I would have wanted it to mean that he missed me and he still wanted to be with me and he, still loved me. And if that was the case, then I could have gone to him and explained that or leaned back or done something to protect my peace in that moment. And I just wanted to kind of like really express that and explain to people, like we could get into these, if anyone actually has a breakup story, like feel free to share it. I put this up in my Facebook group all the time and people can come in and be like, oh, no, wait, hold on, hold my beer, Jen. Like, you kept a spreadsheet, I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah.
But because I want to normalize that kind of stuff because we are wacky when we are in the breakup phase.
Yeah.
So thank you for just sharing that and for really like bringing that in. Do you have anything to speak on for kind of what I just shared there as a coach?
Absolutely. I think that our brains, when we are in grief, especially when there's been so much attachment built up with a particular person, will convince us to do so many things. And so, like the spreadsheet example, right? Like, I've heard so many stories like that. Like, I truly have. I've had people who like went back through texting conversations and like figured out, well, he said this at this time and he said it here again. And after he gets so specific in certain little details. And I think at the end of the day, it's our brains trying to like feel like it has some semblance of control. And I just to normalize it, to normalize like it's like it's understandable that you're checking the timestamps and you're reviewing and you're trying to get information because your brain is trying to feel some sort of control because it wants to try and feel safe and to try and protect you. But I think like having the right reflections back of like, hey, really, what are you trying to get out of this? And for me, the big question that helped me because I had my own stuff. Let me tell you that I would do with my ex that I was trying to figure out who he was seeing. And like, I had my own stuff. And one of the questions that I got asked that I now share with people is just like, who do you want to be in this moment? And it's a very simple question. For a lot of people, it can even be considered a cliche question. But when I was confronted with, okay, let's say he has moved on, or let's say he has cheated on this other person, or let's say, he is upset at you. Who do you want to be in this moment? And what can you, at the end of the day, make your peace with and how you showed up? And there's a lot of ways in which I showed up where I was like, yeah, I don't love that for me. I don't love how I showed up there. And so who do I want to be? Just asking that question could be really helpful too.
Oh,
but like, it's so normal. Like a lot of people have those types of things. It's just not a lot of us are,
Yeah, we don't talk
courageous
about it. Well,
enough
and
to
then like
say
we
it.
don't want to like talk and be like, oh, I'm the only one that's
Yeah.
ever, done something weird at a breakup. No, that's not the case. Like, right? So
No.
it happens. But great question. Who do I want to be in this moment? And I really just want to encourage anyone out there listening that in order to have help with that question, sometimes we do need someone in our lives to hold a mirror up to us. Now, for many of us, and also back in the day, this was our besties. This could be our mom, our aunties, our cousins, anyone like that. But the world is shifting and the world is changing. And nowadays, we don't always have those safe spaces. Those women are also going through their own shit. And it's just really hard for them to hold space for you. And so it's understandable. And that's where I want to encourage people to get in with more coaches and to get in with these communities of women where they can come and talk with their besties. And like someone else is going to go through a breakup, you can talk with them, they can talk with you, and you guys can hold space for one another. And I want to get rid of this kind of taboo around coaching, around coming into community. Like, I shouldn't need that. I should have my own friends. Like girl, like we were, farming our own food 100 years ago. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting my apples from like the store and maybe from a farmer's market when I feel fancy. But but generally speaking, I'm going down to the local like grocery outlet bargain market to go get my strawberries. So do that too. If anyone is out there listening and they're going through something or going through this breakup, could you tell them how they can get in touch with you so that way they can find a community, they can find a space, someone who is trained, who is trustworthy. Again, watch those other red flags, everybody, if you're out there. But I'd love to know, how can we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I add on to you before
please,
I share?
Yes, please.
The other thing that you brought up for me was, I think we can have both, right? We can have our friends who support us, and that's a beautiful support system. And also we can lean into the support network like coaches who can give us specialized support, who have been trained, who have the resources to support us in a different way. Because I think also the hard truth of the matter is, when we go only to our friends for support, again, it's a beautiful support system, but it's so often that we end up getting told what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. Or we don't always clock that, oh, my friend has their own skin in this game. They're friends with me, but they're also friends with my ex. Or my mom's looking out for me, but also like she's the grandmother of my children. Like there's a lot of layers that can come into those relationships that I think like hiring someone like you, Jen, or someone like me, like what that gives, or hiring a coach in general, whoever it is to support you. I think what that gives is someone whose focus is just you and your processing and your goals and what you're working towards, without any of their own, like they have a stake in the game in terms of they care about you getting the results you want, but not their own personal relationships and things of that nature. So I also think that's where this can be very powerful work, especially like sometimes like, listen, I love my friends and I love my boyfriend, and I can also clock it when they're not telling me what I need to hear, but they're telling me the version they think I will accept in that moment. And sometimes we need lovingly with compassion and care and thoughtfulness, but we need someone to be able to go, hey, here's what I'm seeing, here's the pattern I'm seeing, here's the thoughts I'm seeing, what do you think? And just like say it how it is. So I also think that's the powerful thing about getting support. But anyway.
No, thank you so much for that. Absolutely, because we need someone to lovingly say, Jen, put down the spreadsheet and let's figure out why.
And let's figure out why you're feeling this way.
Thank you for that add-on. That stuff is just, it's so, so important to me. I absolutely love it. So please let us know, how can we find you on Instagram or anywhere else, websites or anything you're offering?
Absolutely. I hang out the most on Instagram and TikTok, so you can find me at lucy.m.price. You can also find me on my website, shiftyourstory.net, and that has all of my social links on there as well.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so, so much for coming on the show today, Lucy. I think you have been a wealth of knowledge. I know so many people are going to get so much out of this, and I can't wait to have you back on another day.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's been such a pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.